That toy your mom threw out might have been worth more than her house. Why did a Hot Wheels car that cost $1 sell for more than an actual car? How did a glorified cardboard box, Barbie's Dream House, become worth thousands? There are toys on this list you're going to wish you never took out of the box. I'm Mike with List 25, and today we're counting down 25 vintage toys worth a fortune today. 25. Lite-Brite. Staying up past bedtime, shoving tiny colored pegs into a light box felt like creating a masterpiece. If you've still got a 1967 Lite-Brite in your parents' basement with the original box and pegs intact, you're sitting on a few $100. The first edition versions are where the real money's at. Collectors hunt for these, especially if the light still works and the plastic hasn't yellowed from decades in storage. I'm talking $200 to $400, depending on condition, which isn't bad for something most kids use to spell their names and call it art. The catch? You need the box, instruction sheets, and a solid stash of unused pegs, because missing half of them drops the value fast. But if you kept everything perfect and never let your siblings destroy it, that attic trip might be worth your time. 24. Speak and Spell. If Lite-Brite was the artistic phase, Speak and Spell was the academic era. This bright orange hunk of plastic with the robotic voice didn't teach spelling. Instead, it became a pop culture legend thanks to E.T. When the alien used it to phone home, this thing rocketed into collectible territory. Released in 1978, the Speak and Spell was one of the first toys to use digital speech synthesis, which is basically a tiny computer that sounded like a processed calculator. Kids loved it. Parents loved that it was educational. Now collectors will drop $500 to $1,000 for one in good condition. What matters most is whether it still works with leak-free batteries. Having the original packaging and interchangeable game cartridges will push the value into serious money territory. If it's sitting in a drawer with corroded battery acid, not so much. 23. Easy Bake Oven. Baking tiny, questionable cakes with a light bulb felt like running a Michelin star restaurant. The 1963 Easy Bake Oven, specifically that turquoise metal version, is now worth serious cash, and collectors are obsessed with it. This wasn't flimsy plastic. The first edition was built like a tank, made of actual metal in that gorgeous retro turquoise that screams mid-century kitchen goals. It used a regular light bulb as the heat source, which somehow worked well enough to produce tiny cakes that tasted like cardboard, but felt like culinary masterpieces. These fetch $300 to $600, but only if they work, look decent, and come with their original box. Bonus points for the little cake pans, mixes, and instruction booklets, but good luck finding those, since almost nobody held on to them. 22. Super Soaker 50. The Super Soaker 50 didn't change water fights, it weaponized summer. Before 1990, squirt guns dribbled water like broken faucets. Then, the Super Soaker showed up with its pressurized air pump system and blasted every other water gun into obsolescence. That bright neon design, the satisfying pump action, and the ability to drench friends from across the yard made this thing legendary. Kids everywhere became tiny warlords, and parents realized they funded a backyard arms race. It wasn't a toy, it was dominance in plastic form. Now collectors hunt early models, especially ones with intact pressure tanks that haven't yellowed from sun exposure. Still in the box unopened? You're looking at $500 to $1,000 easy. It is peak 90s nostalgia, and people pay big money to relive those glory days. 21. Teddy Ruxpin. Teddy Ruxpin was either the coolest toy you owned or the creepiest thing on your shelf. There was no in between. Released in 1985, Teddy Ruxpin was the first animatronic storytelling bear that moved its mouth and eyes while reading from cassette tapes. Kids thought it was magic, while parents found it mildly terrifying. Either way, it flew off shelves and became one of the decade's best-selling toys. The problem? Almost all were loved to pieces. Motors broke, tapes got chewed up, and fur got matted from years of hugs and sticky hands. Tracking down one that still works is surprisingly difficult. and you can expect to pay over $1,000 for mint condition examples with original packaging and a full tape library. Early Worlds of Wonder production models are the most valuable. 20. My Little Pony, Rapunzel. The G1 Rapunzel My Little Pony is one of the rarest toys from the 80s, and collectors lose their minds trying to find one. This plastic pony can cost more than a used car. Rapunzel was never sold in stores and was only available through a special mail order offer, which meant most kids never knew she existed. You had to send in proof of purchase seals from other ponies, wait weeks, and hope your parents didn't throw away the form. Most families never bothered, so very few were ever redeemed. That extra long hair and unique pastel design set her apart from every other pony in the collection. These go for $1,500 to $3,000 in good condition, especially with those vibrant colors, uncut hair, and no major scuffs. Having the original box can push the value even higher. 19. Barbie Dream House. The very first Barbie Dream House wasn't a massive plastic mansion with elevators. Simply a fold-out cardboard playset that looked like a mid-century modern apartment, complete with printed furniture, a record player, and geometric decor that screamed 1960s chic. This was huge for Barbie because it gave kids a whole environment, instead of just dressing her up and calling it a day. Suddenly, Barbie had a living room, a bedroom, and a social life. The storytelling possibilities exploded, and the Dream House became a brand staple for decades. Now, cardboard and kids don't really mix. Spills, rough play, and family moves wiped out most of these over the years. The ones that survived with all the little furniture pieces and packaging intact, though, those go for $2,000 to $3,000, depending on condition. 18. Lego Space Command Center. If you were a Lego kid in the late 70s, the Space Command Center was the ultimate dream set. This wasn't a box of bricks. It was a full space base with a landing pad, control tower, vehicles, and those iconic yellow-suited astronaut minifigs that defined a generation of LEGO space exploration. Released in 1979, this set launched LEGO's classic space line and introduced kids to a futuristic building with blue and gray elements straight out of a sci-fi movie. The kind of set you begged for Christmas, built over an entire weekend, and played with until the pieces disappeared into the carpet. And that's exactly why finding one today is so difficult. These typically got dismantled, mixed with other sets, or lost critical pieces. Getting your hands on a complete set with all original bricks, decals, instructions, and box is rare. Mint examples sell for over $3,000, and sealed sets are basically LEGO royalty. 17. Stretch Armstrong. Stretch Armstrong looked indestructible. You could pull his arms, twist his legs, and stretch him across the room like rubber magic. Except he wasn't indestructible at all. That gel-filled body cracked, leaked, and turned into a sticky disaster over time. Few survived the 70s and 80s. Kids stretched him too hard, the rubber split, and suddenly mysterious goo was everywhere. Parents threw them out. But decades later, collectors realized intact versions are shockingly rare. If you've got one that's still smooth, flexible, and leak-free, you're sitting on $4,000 to $6,000, maybe more if it's boxed with the original accessories. The key is condition. No cracks, no discoloration, no weird stickiness. The rubber has to look and feel like 1976, which is almost impossible to find. 16. He-Man, Castle Grayskull. Castle Grayskull wasn't just a playset. It was the playset. Every kid with He-Man figures dreamed of storming that fortress, and if your parents bought it for you one Christmas, you were playground royalty. This thing was massive and featured a drawbridge, trapdoors, a spinning tower, and enough hidden compartments to keep you busy for hours. It was the ultimate battleground for He-Man and Skeletor and defined a generation of action figure play. Unfortunately, decades of use meant warped plastic, peeled stickers, and missing pieces for most sets that survived. Now, collectors hunt for Castle Grayskulls with all moving parts intact, original stickers in good shape, and minimal cracking. Having the original box pushes the value even higher. A complete set with figures and accessories can fetch $5,000 to $7,000, making it one of the most iconic playsets of the 80s. 15. Transformers G1 Optimus Prime. If Castle Grayskull was king of the playsets, Optimus Prime was the king of the action figures. The 1984 G1 Optimus Prime is one of the most legendary toys ever made, and collectors treat it like a religious artifact. This wasn't just any toy. Optimus transformed from a semi-truck cab into a towering robot leader of the Autobots, and his trailer came packed with weapons, a repair bay, and enough accessories to keep you entertained for hours. That iconic red and blue color scheme, the satisfying transformation, and his role as franchise hero made him an instant classic. The only catch is that all those tiny parts are almost never together anymore. Nearly all are missing something. An unopened boxed G1 Optimus from the first production run can fetch $5,000 to $7,000, possibly more. 14. Atari 2600. The Atari 2600 invented home gaming as we know it. Before 1977, playing video games meant pumping quarters into arcade machines. And suddenly, you could play Pong, Space Invaders, and Pac-Man from your couch. And the world was never the same. Most consoles got ripped open on Christmas morning, plugged in immediately, and played until the joysticks broke. Kids didn't care about keeping boxes in mint condition because they wanted to blow stuff up on their TV screens. That's why factory sealed units are shockingly rare today. Expect to shell out $3,000 to $5,000 for a sealed Atari 2600 with original packaging, manuals, and promotional inserts. This isn't about nostalgia alone. It's about owning a piece of gaming history that launched an entire industry, and one still wrapped in plastic is worth a small fortune. 13. Game Boy. Nintendo changed everything in 1989. The Game Boy was not the first portable gaming device, but it was the first one that actually mattered. Kids everywhere became obsessed with the chunky gray brick of the Game Boy and its hypnotic green screen. Tetris was included with every unit, and this decision proved to be a stroke of marketing genius. Everyone played it, and I mean everyone. Kids, parents, even grandparents. The Game Boy became a cultural phenomenon, with over 100 million units sold worldwide. Finding one still sealed in its original packaging is nearly impossible today. Kids played with these things constantly until they broke. Screens cracked, buttons wore out, and battery compartments corroded after decades of storage. And everyone, you know it, you lost the battery cover. Everyone did. The Japanese launch editions are still the most coveted among collectors, and sealed examples fetch between $5,000 and $10,000 at auction. 12. LEGO Star Wars Ultimate Collector Millennium Falcon. LEGO fans, this is your Super Bowl. The 2007 Ultimate Collector Series Millennium Falcon remains one of the most legendary LEGO sets ever produced. Sealed versions now sell for approximately $10,000. Look, I love LEGO, and I have my entire life. I built a mock Milano from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's missing some pieces, it fell off during I moved. I also have Poe Dameron's X-Wing. Boom. Oh yeah. And I have James Bond's Aston Martin. But that is $10,000 for a box of plastic bricks. When LEGO released this set in 2007, it held the record for the largest LEGO set ever made. The completed model consisted of over 5,000 pieces and measured more than 33 inches in length. Every detail of the iconic starship was meticulously recreated, from the hull plating to the cockpit to the landing gear. This was never meant to be a toy. It was a display-worthy masterpiece designed for serious collectors. The high price at launch resulted in relatively few people purchasing the set. Among those who did, almost everyone opened the box and assembled it immediately. Sealed units became extraordinarily rare after LEGO discontinued production, transforming the 2007 Millennium Falcon into the holy grail of LEGO collecting. Even used sets that have already been assembled sell for thousands of dollars today. 11. Star Wars Luke Skywalker. The 1978 Luke Skywalker with the double telescoping lightsaber is one of the most coveted collectibles in the entire Star Wars universe, and its worth is now more than most people's cars. What makes it special is the lightsaber extended in 2 stages instead of 1, which was fragile and expensive to produce. Kenner quickly switched to single telescoping, meaning these were only on shelves briefly before disappearing. Most kids who got one broke the saber immediately because, well, they were kids. Tracking one down with the saber intact is nearly impossible. Still on the original card, mint condition, vibrant paint, no wear? You're looking at $25,000 to $40,000. Some have even sold for more at auction. Early Star Wars rarities command insane prices. 10. Star Wars Vinyl Cape Jawa. We've hit the final 10, and Star Wars collectors have another crown jewel on their wish list, the Vinyl Cape Jawa. This little hooded scavenger is worth $20,000 to $30,000, and it comes down to one tiny detail: the cape. When Kenner first released the Jawa in 1978, they gave it a cheap vinyl cape that looked flimsy and felt like a garbage bag. Parents complained it looked too low quality, so Kenner switched to cloth. The vinyl version was only on the shelves briefly before getting replaced, and most kids lost or destroyed the cape during play. Verifying an authentic vinyl cape Jawa today is difficult because counterfeits are everywhere. Graded, authenticated figures in excellent condition fetch $20,000 to $30,000, especially if still carded. 9. Nintendo Entertainment System. If the Atari 2600 launched home gaming, the Nintendo Entertainment System saved it from collapse. By the mid-80s, the video game industry had crashed hard, and everyone thought gaming was a fad. Then, Nintendo arrived in 1985 with the NES and changed everything. Super Mario Bros., Metroid, and The Legend of Zelda all came from this console. It defined childhoods and created franchises that remain massive today. Most units were opened immediately, played into oblivion, and ended up in basements with tangled cords and cartridges that only worked if you blew into them. Factory sealed units are incredibly rare. I'm talking $25,000 to $50,000 for a sealed NES from the first production run with original packaging, and some have sold for even more. Collectors treat these like museum pieces because they represent one of gaming's most important moments. 8. Steiff Teddy Bear. Steiff has been hand-stitching teddy bears in Germany since the early 1900s, and this company took stuffed animals way too seriously, in the best way possible. These were not cheap carnival prizes. They were mohair masterpieces with jointed limbs, glass eyes, and craftsmanship that puts modern toys to shame. The giveaway? A little metal button sewn into the ear. Steiff added it in 1904 so people could tell real from knockoffs, and that button is now the golden ticket. If it's still attached and the bear's holding up after 100 plus years, you've got something special. Most of the bears didn't make it. Kids dragged them everywhere and they fell apart. The ones that survived in good condition with the original button sell for $20,000 to over $100,000, depending on the model. 7. Barbie Original Number 1. The very first Barbie from 1959 is toy royalty. Toyalty, if you will. That sounded better in my head. She showed up in a black and white striped swimsuit with a ponytail and that signature painted-on face, and she changed what dolls could be forever. Before Barbie, girls played with baby dolls. After Barbie, they had a fashion icon with an entire lifestyle to imagine. Barbie came in blonde or brunette, and collectors obsess over the tiny variations between versions because some are far rarer than others. Most original Barbies were loved to death by the kids who own them, which is why finding one in good shape is so difficult. Landing one in great shape with everything it originally came with is the jackpot. A 1959 Barbie number 1 goes for $25,000 to $100,000 or more, depending on condition and version. Perfect examples hit 6 figures without breaking a sweat. 6. Hot Wheels Pink Rear-Loading Beach Bomb. The pink rear-loading beach ball Hot Wheels sold for over $150,000. A toy car smaller than your phone, worth more than a house down payment. This was a prototype that never made it to stores. The original design had a surfboard loading slot on the back, but it made the car too narrow and top-heavy for Hot Wheels tracks. Mattel scrapped it before mass production, so only a handful of prototypes exist. Some estimates say fewer than 10 confirmed worldwide. The pink version is even rarer, because pink was considered a girl's color back then, so Mattel barely produced any. Combine that with the failed design, and you've got one of the rarest toy cars ever made. When one pops up at auction, prices go bonkers. 5. Mickey Mouse Tin Wind-Up Motorcycle. We're down to the final 5, and this tin motorcycle from 1930 sold for $222,000. More than that pink Hot Wheels I talked about. The Tip & Co. Mickey Mouse motorcycle was manufactured in Germany for the UK market, arriving only 2 years after Mickey himself was created. It's a wind-up toy featuring Mickey and Minnie riding together, and it's about as charming as vintage toys get. Only 18 are known to exist today. Most tin toys from the 30s were played with until they rusted, dented, or fell apart. Scoring one that's still working with a functional wind-up mechanism and vibrant paint is nearly impossible. In 2022, one sold for that $222,000 after a bidding war. It's museum-quality Disney history. 4. Rocket-firing Boba Fett prototype. Star Wars collectors, this is the big one. The rocket-firing Boba Fett prototype is the most legendary action figure that never made it to stores, and it's worth $150,000 to $200,000. Kenner advertised this thing everywhere. Kids saw it in every catalog and magazine, and the commercials ran constantly. Boba Fett featured a spring-loaded rocket launcher that could actually fire. Then Kenner panicked, because a child had a choking incident with a missile from a Battlestar Galactica toy, and every company with projectile features scrambled to avoid lawsuits. Because of this, the rocket-firing Boba Fett got cancelled, and production figures came with the missile glued in place. Only a tiny handful of working prototypes survived, and most are kept by Kenner employees or discovered decades later. This is the ultimate Star Wars grail, because it was promised, cancelled, and became legendary because of it. 3. Stefano Canturi Barbie. This is not your daughter's Barbie. The Stefano Canturi Barbie sold at Christie's in 2010 for $302,500, making it the most expensive Barbie ever auctioned. Most of the value comes from what she's wearing around her neck. Australian jewelry designer Stefano Canturi created a one-of-a-kind necklace featuring a rare 1-carat pink diamond surrounded by white baguette and carry-cut diamonds. He put it on a Barbie. The doll was created for a charity auction, and bidders went absolutely wild for it. The final hammer price shattered every record for a fashion doll. This was never meant to be a toy. It was a piece of wearable art that happened to be displayed on a Barbie. The necklace alone would be worth a fortune, but putting it on the world's most recognizable doll turned it into something collectors had never seen before. 2. 1934 Lionel standard gauge train set. Model train collectors do not mess around. A 1934 Lionel standard gauge train set sold for $250,000 in 2016, proving that these miniature locomotives are serious business. Lionel has been making model trains since 1900, and the company became synonymous with Christmas morning for generations of American families. The standard gauge line was their premium offering, featuring larger tracks and more detailed trains than the cheaper O-gauge sets. Production ended in 1940, which means surviving sets are getting harder to find every year. The trains that command the highest prices are the ones that still work and have all their original parts. Paint chips, missing cars, and broken mechanisms all drop the value significantly. A complete set in excellent condition with the original boxes is the holy grail for train collectors, and they will pay 6 figures to get one. 1. Madame Alexander Eloise doll. We have finally reached number 1, and nothing else on this list even comes close. The Madame Alexander Eloise doll is valued at $5 million. $5 million for a doll. Let me say that slower. $5 million. Eloise is based on the mischievous little girl from Kay Thompson's book series who lived at the Plaza Hotel and caused chaos everywhere. Madame Alexander created the original back in 1955, but the $5 million version came from a special 2000 collection where only 5 were ever made. What makes it worth a mansion down payment? The doll wears Christian Dior clothes and Oscar de la Renta fur with Catherine Bauman accessories. Then add 9 carats of diamonds plus Swarovski crystals. Each came with its own designer pet dog, because why stop at one ridiculously expensive thing? None have been sold at auction yet, so the price is an estimate. But considering what's sewn onto this doll, nobody's arguing. It is the most expensive toy, period. From glowing pegboards to diamond-encrusted dolls, we've officially covered toys worth more than some houses. If your parents ever told you to keep things in the box, it turns out they were accidentally giving you investment advice. Did you own any of these growing up? And what was your all-time favorite toy? Let me know in the comments. And if you want even more toy madness, click here to check out 25 most disturbing children's toys ever made. Seriously, some of these will haunt you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe call your parents this weekend. Not to catch up, but to ask what's still in their attic. Thanks for hanging around, and I'll catch you in the next one.